So I'm out here in Bannockburn, and they opened a PNC Bank. And the PNC Bank is going to do lending. And now in that lending, they're going to lend out to different properties. And so in this area, say the average price point, mostly houses. So you're going to say the average price point of $500,000 out here. Surely the average price point's about $500,000. And so they're going to season their portfolio with an average price point of about $500,000. Now there are some townhomes and some condos, and those will fall into $200,000 and $300,000. But majority of all homes of $500,000 and above. And so when you're doing a bank, like you open it in different areas, that's the type of lending you're going to do, right? And then the clients out here, say the average income is $100,000 plus. Say the average income out here is $100,000. So that means somebody living out here makes $100,000 a year or plus. That's the average income. So you got to figure out disposable income, how much is going to be in checking and savings, and then how much you're going to get in time deposits called certificates of deposit. So you borrow on the long, and they do. That's the, 10, so on. But your shorter term instruments are the business community. You're doing shorter loans to the business community. And then usually home equity loans, those are lines of credit. And so banks can also get into the reverse mortgage market, and then reverse mortgage lines of credit as well. So banks can offer that. And then the PNC can also get, I used to work a long time ago with, what was the bank? It was here, Builders Bank. And it specialized in small business lending. And it did loans through small business, the Federal Small Business Association. And so the loans went through, they got the Small Business Association guarantee on the loan, and they did loans to small business through the Small Business Association. So a bank can offer that to small businesses working with the Small Business Association. And so you're lending in the shorter term to businesses, and you're giving businesses a line of credit, like Arctronic, I think. Well, anyways, had like $1 million line of credit, and they used the line of credit as their liquidity. So they borrow from it and pay it right back. But they used that in case they needed quick cash. So they had a standing line of credit with a bank. So, anyways, Deerfield High School. So the bank can also do and should get into municipal debt. So issuing bonds for school improvements and that. The bank can issue bonds, can work with the municipality to issue bonds for school projects, the water treatment, and that's another place in Deerfield. There's a water treatment center and so on, and it can issue bonds. So there's a lot a bank can do that they seemed not to do, and they seem to be very concentrated in a very small segment of product, and if things don't quite go right, they don't tend to do very well. So they need to, but getting back to it, here's Tony Subs. And so this family, Edie's, they own Tony Sub, they own the gas station. And speaking of Tony Subs, they have the French bread, and then they spray the bread down with vinegar and oil first. And so it softens the bread, the French bread, with vinegar and oil. All the breads get vinegar and oil. Then they put on the meats and the cheeses and that. They own the gas station here, and they own the hair and nail salon they used to, the VDs. Now, I don't know if they own the cleaners, but they used to own all this land. It was one family, and they had multiple businesses. And lots of kids from Deerfield High School went to Tony Subs. I went to Tony Subs. I really like Tony Subs. Truly. And so, as you see, this out here in Deerfield, it's single family mostly. And so you're lending and you're putting a bank out here, and you're really getting into the single family houses. Where you move into Chicago, and depending on where you put the bank, you're getting into condominiums, and other areas townhouses, and then some areas condos, townhouses, but you're also getting into rental properties. And so a lot of buildings built to be pure rental properties. And so it's a little bit different mixture than it is out here. We rented out here, and I'll drive by the property that we moved into, and we rented from an Asian family. They were good landlords, and we rented the house from them. They had multiple properties, and we rented a property from the Asian family. Now, here is Holy Cross, and so this is the opposite of Wilmot Junior High, and so I'll go by Holy Cross, and so it's a Catholic church, but this is where Billy Chapman, he was buried, and I mean his funeral was here. He was held at Holy Cross, and a few other people who died from Deerfield were here at Holy Cross. I've never actually been in here, and my friend Bill went here. Now his family was struggling, and they choose not to go to the Wilmot Elementary or Junior High. They went to Holy Cross. He went to Wilmot Junior High. That's why I met him. He went to Holy Cross for elementary. And so Holy Cross is an elementary school. And the funny thing is, when I played at... I'm going the wrong way, I think. But, yeah. So I'm all screwed up here. But anyways, it's... Oh, no, I'm going to right. Okay. So, Holy Cross here is a elementary school. And it doesn't do any type of mailing or anything. And Holy Cross, founded in 1929, renovated in 2005. And so it's an elementary school, but they don't do any mailings into Deerfield and that. You don't really know about it. And so you don't really hear much about Holy Cross. And Bertram, my friend, went here. The only thing is that it might have been better for them to go to the public school. Put less strain on the family, and that's why I'm a pro voucher program, where it allows you to go to a Christian school if you want to and take the voucher over there. Now, there could be a difference in fee, so they can charge more than the voucher's worth. That's up to them. Or they can do an exchange, or it can be a rebate where it's less than the voucher's worth. So that's up to the institution. The voucher doesn't set the fee of the institution. It's like the Pell Grant and MAP Grant. Those are grants, but it doesn't set the fee of the institution. The institution sets that fee independent. Just because the Pell Grant goes up or the MAP Grant goes up, it doesn't mean the schools should raise their prices. It's supposed to be independent based on value. And so it's supposed to be independently done, and the Department of Education needs to make sure that the schools are not just raising their prices because the government's going to give more money in that way. So there's also a good, there's a Deerfield. Deer Frank's has been here since I've been a kid, and used to have good food. And then Upper Crust Bagels is great, and that was a good bagel place. And I don't know about the others. And then let's see if the hamburger place is here. So we went here, and there was a hamburger place. And the hamburger place, the Cherry Pit. So remember 90210? Well, this was here before that show, and they went to the Cherry Pit. Well, this restaurant is the Cherry Pit. And when we went to the state championship, they bought us hamburgers. And so I went in here, and they gave the whole team free hamburgers. Just the players, but I was one of them. I had a free hamburger, and it was a good hamburger. But they were a booster of the Deerfield football team. And here's Fleetfoot. I wonder if they do anything with the high school running program. Truly, they do anything with the high school running program. So this is downtown Deerfield, and they renovated this area. So I don't know how this is the Deerfield Commons, and I'll just go through it. These are all new shops, and when they added the Commons, this is when they added the condos and I think maybe some townhouses. Excuse me. But this is the Deerfield Commons. And so it used to be where the Whole Foods is. That used to be a Jewel. Now it's a Whole Foods. And the reason is because Jewel, it was slow to modify its offering. And so this became a Whole Foods instead of a Jewel. And so all these, Morby Parker and all this, but so they have put in a lot of businesses in here. So there's a Potbelly Sub, but they put a lot of businesses in here, and provide services to the community that lives here. But the thing is, remember, these businesses serves the community that doesn't work here. So these businesses really get their business, a lot of it, in the evening and on the weekend. And if they're not open late and open early, the midday, they get the housewives in that. But that's starting to change, because with busing services and everything else, kids are independent, and so the mother's free, and the mother, now you have a dual income household, which creates great stability, but there's not a lot of at-home moms as much anymore. And there's Chase Bank. It came in here, so they're lending into this community. And it's been here for a while. Not since I've been a kid. When I was here first. Chase came later. It used to be Bank of Chicago. And so Zupa's, and there used to be a steakhouse here. And I went here with a guy I work with, Bill Foss, and another guy. Both of them came from the exchange. And so they used to be traders, and Bill played horn. He played the trumpet in a band. And we went to a steakhouse here. So I don't know what type of restaurant this is. But doing this, how they're getting their people, because everybody here doesn't work around here. And so literally the town becomes a vacuum during the day, meaning a ghost town during the day, you would say. Not a lot of people around. So you do have a senior population, some of it, and they're somewhat around, but mostly you get very light activity. And so it makes it difficult for these retailers to get regular business, because during the day, kids are in school, parents are working, and so it makes it very difficult for them to get business. Now, lunch hour, I worked in Bannockburn, and we would come over here for lunch, not too far away, when I worked for GCG. So you have to figure out where the offices are. Now, what is closer for them, those are the offices in that. And so you have Baxter, and now you have Amgen and others that are up on Lake Cook Road. So that's where the businesses are, or you have to go further all the way north to Bannockburn, and there are offices in Bannockburn and that. I worked in Bannockburn and Vernon Hills, and I lived in Chicago. So when I worked at GCG in Bannockburn and Dempsey Financial in Vernon Hills, I lived in Chicago. And then when I at MetLife and others that are in Chicago, I lived in Buffalo Grove. So Deerfield Cycle's been here since I've been a kid, and this gas station's been here since I've been a kid, Marathon. My friend Mike used to work here as a mechanic. He was a bodybuilder and mechanic. He was a very good mechanic. Truly. He was a good bodybuilder, and he was an excellent mechanic who built a very good book of business. So in a small town like that, if you're really good, like Deerfield, you can build a very good book of business. It's much easier because it tends to be more stable, not as much churn, and so the kids go to elementary, junior high, and high school, and then college, and then you might see some churn. But not really. So from birth to preschool, so that's 3 years old at preschool, and then they go into elementary, then junior high out here. After 6th grade, you go into junior high. Here's the post office. And so you go into junior high, and then you go into high school, and then you go into college. 99.9% of my graduating class went to college. 99% plus went to college. So almost 100% of my graduating class went to college. So everybody went to college, basically. Only a few people didn't. And so they opened up the Deerfield Commons, and this is where you got your townhouses and that. This is all new. But I'll show you where I used to live and where we rented from an Asian family. And they were good to us, and they owned the property. And so originally out here, it was just whites and Asians. And then you have in Highwood and that, you had some Hispanics, but basically for the school and that, you had whites and Asians, and then athletes came later, and they had the Bannockburn Center, and that's where the Bulls practice, and then you had the football players, and then you had black athletes move out this way. So like my friend Paul Chin, they owned a Chinese restaurant in Highland Park. But he went to Deerfield because they lived in the Deerfield area, not the Highland Park area. So this is where I lived. This house right here off of Sunset Court and right by the train. And they redid this. It looks nice. But I used to live here. Me and my brother John lived in one room, and we had bunk beds. So we had bunk beds, and it was owned by an Asian family. And then down here, my friend Dave Brown, his mother and father, and him and his brother used to live here. His brother died young, and then Dave died. He was going to the University of Missouri, and he died one summer in a swimming accident. And so the family, the mother and father who I visit, the Brown family, they had to move out of Deerfield. They said they couldn't move around Deerfield because it tore out their heart, because they would think of places where, they went and with their kids were born here, and all these memories, and every time they go, they think about their children, and they couldn't deal with it. After their second son died, they couldn't deal with it. So I talked to them just before they left, and they explained everything to me. I went over, I stayed connected with them for a while. They were good people, and there's tragic incidents. Then both of their kids were good kids. I told you the David Carradine incident where he hung himself doing a sexual act. Well, somehow their oldest son discovered that act as well, and they put the rope around their neck, and then they hang themselves, and then they masturbate as they're hanging, and then they step back on the stool, release the rope from their neck, and then finish masturbating, and it gives a rush of, hormones and blood and all that to the brain and from the brain. And it's the same as asphyxiation when they do that in one movie with Sean Connery through choking. Well, another way to do that same maneuver is through hanging. When you don't have somebody choking you to do it yourself, you use a rope and you hang yourself. And David Carradine supposedly knocked over the chair, and he died. And that's exactly what happened to Mr. and Mrs. Brown's son. He died because he tried to get back on the chair, but he accidentally kicked the chair over. And he couldn't get anything under him, and he wasn't strong enough to grab the rope and pull himself up. See, if you're hanging, you can grab the rope above you and then flip yourself up. Truly. You don't have to stay there and put all your weight under you. Flip yourself up and wrap your feet around the rope. And then you'll take the pressure off the rope, and you have to figure out how you're going to get out of it. But if you take the pressure off, you should be able to loosen the knot. But